I'm Roger Lim. I was at the Radiophonic Workshop between about 1972 and 1994. The workshop had already been going for quite a while by the time I arrived, and I had to do a bit of learning on the hoof, and I left in 94, and eventually some of us from the workshop decided we'd form a band and take some of our material out on the road.
Hence where you come in.
That's where I came in, yeah. So I'm Bob Erland. I joined the guys around 2013, initially just helping with sort of some tech support on stage, and then they realised they needed me to play some percussion and then some synth, and now I'm sort of full-time member of the band.
Was a reluctant band member, became full-time.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I don't think he was reluctant.
No, not at all.
No, I suppose not.
It started as a spin-off in the radio drama, BBC Radio Drama Department in the mid-50s. There were some interesting new scripts being written, and there were some rather adventurous producers in charge, and that led to them. First of all, at the same time, there were all sorts of experiments going on the continent, particularly in France and in Germany, relating to electronic music, the sort of manipulation of sound, and they were coming up with some remarkable results. And the BBC and people in this country generally were starting to be intrigued by this. And I think the two things came together. The producers of these rather interesting scripts for Radio 3 decided that they would like to have some interesting sounds, because these are not sort of down-to-earth basic scripts which, should we say, day-to-day situations. These were, we could say, we always used to say that Radiophonic Workshop was good for outer space and inner space. And by inner space, I mean, what's going on in your brain, how would you set to music a nervous breakdown? I mean, that was one of the early commissions, I think. There was a lot of tape manipulation. That was one of the main techniques in the early days. And some of the very interesting and clever people at that time took forward the techniques of tape manipulation. I was mentioning Delia Derbyshire for a start, and John Baker as well. Mm-hmm. And all for the next 10 years, all sorts of interesting and quite challenging and quite beautiful sometimes. Pieces were commissioned and completed and were used, and it was quite clear that the Radiophonic Workshop was going to become a permanent part of BBC Radio, but of course quite often radio producers go off and work in television, and they took the Radiophonic Workshop with them, if you might say.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before the Radiophonic Workshop was providing scores for TV drama.
There's a lot of equipment on stage, old and new, so I was sort of helping set that up, ironing out any issues. And then it was the Queen Elizabeth show we did.
That's the hall, not the ship.
Yes, yeah, Queen Elizabeth Hall, yeah.
Well, why not the ship, eh?
Yeah, that'd be great. We have a bit of a habit of playing slightly odd venues, so that's worked quite well.
We really.
So, yeah, there was a show there, and the guys brought out some more material, some of the more sort of legacy stuff, and one piece was The Changes, which Paddy had put together, which involved some tabla and bongos and other percussion. So he asked me if I'd be happy to play a bit of percussion for those extra tracks that add another element to them. So I got involved with that, and then we realised there's a few other tracks with some bits and pieces of percussion. So rather than just playing one song, we sort of spread it out over a few more.
Right, I see, okay.
And then we did the bigger show that had lots of this stuff in, so I helped out with a few tracks. And then that just sort of became the norm, and we just sort of slowly, increasingly added me into the set. But at the same time, I'm still keeping an eye on everything, just in case leads come unplugged and it needs to be
don't let anything go down, redundancy.
The whole of the Radiophonic Workshop, as it was in, say, 1980, can be fitted onto one laptop computer now. You can have all the techniques that we had, all the samples we had can be digitally used in that way. So we've come a long way, but we're still manipulating sound.
Yeah, and also we're still recording good things when we hear them.
Yes, indeed,
of course,
always doing that.
Yeah, I came across a fridge door the other day, which you just wouldn't believe.
Yes, I got a sentence you hear.
I came across an old hurdle once, those metal things, and it was at Brent Cross, and I happened to tap it with my key, and it made a wonderful ringing noise. I dashed home, got my recorder, came back with a hammer, and started and hit it a few times. And that sound I use on cell doors, castle gates, and all sorts of things. Yes,
brilliant.
We're always looking for sound, aren't we?
I mean, this fridge door, well, it was emitting a little squeak, but randomly, because the motor was running in the fridge and causing the door to jiggle around, you see. So this tiny little squeak would be very random and sort of responding to the motor. And it actually sounds like a very strange alien bird, actually.
There was a wonderful story at Maida Vale at the studios, which were pretty old and fairly ramshackle, and full of drafts. Now, there was a famous draft which used to come out of the ladies' toilet door. Do you remember
Indeed,
that?
I do, yes.
Quite often you see us hovering around the ladies' toilet door with and listening to this wonderful wind noise, which was, once again, used widely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It sounded like a soprano, actually.
Really?
Yes, it's a brilliant sound, yeah.
Fridge doors, ladies' toilets. Wow.
Could have been the men's, but it happened to be the ladies.
Happened to be the ladies.
Okay. So, with talking then the sonic evolution, if you like, let's look at some of the modern kit that you use. I don't know if this is all of you guys or you, or pretty much everybody within the live show. Some of these synths, some of the sort of the Korg synths that you're into, and the ARP stuff. You've been long-time users of that kit, I believe. Maybe take us through a little bit of that stuff.
Where to begin? There's so much, and it's a mixture of the old and the new, and often the old being processed by the new, or vice versa.
Yeah. Combos.
I'm sort of got into the Eurorack modular kind of scene. Because I modify and build stuff as well, so I've sort of built a few things and bought a few different modules, put those together. So I use that quite a lot in my sort of the main piece I did in the Apollo thing, using granular synthesis, but also feeding old analog oscillators through the granular synthesis. On stage we've got the Korg MS-20 that Mark uses.
Mark absolutely loves his MS-20, yes.
Occasionally the MS-50 makes its way onto the stage as well. We've got the Jupiter 8. There's so much. Tape
I mean, I've
machines
got
that have been used.
a DX7 II that I use as a keyboard, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff around.
I've got the King Korg, which I use pretty well every gig.
Yeah.
It's got some wonderful sounds, particularly analog sorts of sounds.
Yeah.
And also for a while I had the Korg Kronos in tow, but I don't use that quite so often now, but I use it on my home studio when I did quite a lot of work on the Moonshot program using the Kronos.